Welcome back. Joining me now, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, along with Florida Congressman and HBO documentary star and author of the new book, Firebrand, Dispatches from the Front Lines of the MAGA Revolution, which is available to pre-order now. Matt Gaetz, there they are. OK, gang, you just saw my conversation, let's call it that, with the mooch. What do we make of it? Matt Gaetz, you kick us off.
I don't know which of Anthony Scaramucci's 11 days as communications director was my favorite, but you got to kind of hand it to the guy. He spent more hours on television talking about the Trump administration than he actually spent in the Trump administration. And I think he got fired for talking trash about one of his coworkers on the record when he thought he was talking off the record. And having a communications director who doesn't know the difference between on the record and off the record is sort of like having a lifeguard who doesn't know how to swim. He was critical of the president's response to coronavirus, but Steve, I think you correctly framed this election as a choice. And I think Joe Biden's only win so far on the coronavirus is that stuck in his own bunker, he hasn't contracted it. Yeah, I didn't know Anthony was such a snowflake that the president's mean tweets would send him into the arms of a hapless Joe Biden. But Sarah makes, I think, the right point. The Lincoln Project Never Trump group is sort of like a losing record wrapped in hypocrisy. You know, Rick Wilson, who you showed, criticized the president for not releasing his tax returns and then had problems paying his own taxes. Jeff Weaver criticized the president for being a Russian agent and then afterwards literally went and registered as an agent for a Russian corporation. So I don't know that they're really a group that's going to move a lot of votes. It's largely about them raising money to get more personal wealth and to try to tap the swamp for their own financial gain. The president wants to provide for the American people. And as I've watched Democrats today, they've been crying alligator tears about executive orders and the misuse of the executive branch. Well, Democrats had no problems with executive orders when Barack Obama was using them to create amnesty for illegal aliens. When Democrat presidential candidates talked about using executive power to seize people's guns, Democrats were gushing with enthusiasm. So it's only when our president wants to put the American people first that the Democrats actually have a problem. And it highlights how broken Congress is. Look, there's bipartisan agreement that people shouldn't be getting evicted right now, that students shouldn't be disadvantaged in their student loans, and that we have to provide some bridge for people back to employment. But Nancy Pelosi is holding the future and the well-being of the American people hostage so that she can go and massively expand government programs that haven't been impacted to the core by coronavirus the way that we've seen an impact on unemployment, student loans, and on eviction. So let's do right by our people. And by the way, if Nancy Pelosi wants to sue the president over it, that will just make his day because it highlights the extent to which he's fighting for Americans.
In the 2016 presidential campaign, Donald Trump promised to drain the swamp. But if Joe Biden wins in November, the first thing he'll do is fill it right back up. Our guest tonight, Matt Gaetz, is the star of a new HBO documentary called The Swamp. Take a look.
I didn't run as someone to unify Washington. I ran to change Washington. I'd really started to think about a Donald Trump presidency. He could bring the fight to a town that badly needed it. The only quid pro quo is Trump's commitment to drain the swamp.
What has President Trump done to drain the swamp?
All right, Matt Gaetz, what is the answer to that question?
President Trump is putting the American people first, above the lobbyists, above the special interests. And as I say in the movie, for too often in America, it didn't really matter which party won elections because both supported policies that invaded everywhere with stupid wars and invited everyone with nonsensical immigration policy and then impoverished every town USA with just bad trade deals for American workers. And so by restoring that ethic, that it's our people and our country that matter first, I think that we've got the lobbyists on the run and we've got a way to really reduce that water level in the swamp. And by the way, if people like the movie on HBO, they're going to love my book, Firebrand, available for pre-order. That's where I tell the whole story and name names.
Very good. You got to. When can you come and talk about that? Just that.
We'll get it done, Steve.
Okay, very good. Right. So Matt, when he keeps making the same kind of so-called gaffe on this point about race, taking black people for granted, saying you're all the same, you all vote Democrat. I don't think that's a gaffe anymore. I think it's much more serious.
What are the odds that the only thing that Joe Biden consistently remembers is his own racism. Like, this isn't a one-off gaffe. Like, this is part of a pattern and practice for Joe Biden that dates really all the way back to when he was up against Barack Obama in the Democratic primary, and he said Obama was clean and articulate. What's obvious here is that when Joe Biden sees a black person in America, he has a homogenous view of how that person ought to think and how that ought to act. That is explicitly the definition of racism. And I don't think in this country we ought to view skin color as the sole function of diversity. I think that people of all different skin colors and backgrounds solve problems differently, approach issues differently, have different ideology and doctrine. And I think that's what makes America so special. And with President Trump, we see the policies that lift up all Americans, not just one class of Americans. And I think that can be ultimately the unifying message of a successful campaign.
Have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
What do you...
Why the hell would he take a test? I think he provided the answer right there, Matt.
Yeah, first of all, okay, boomer, nobody says junkie anymore. When someone suffers from, substance abuse issues, we try to extend the hand of grace. I would think Joe Biden might know that given his own family history. But Biden is substantively making the argument that there's no factual predicate to question his mental capability. And in every American family, we see this dynamic where somebody loses contact, they become a little slower on the uptake. And it would be funnier if America weren't facing such serious challenges. We've got to beat this virus. We've got to confront China. We've got to get our economy moving again. Joe Biden's effort in politics here looks less like a presidential campaign and more like elder abuse.
Okay. Sarah, go on. And the other big point here is that it really emphasizes the importance of the choice he's about to make, maybe as early as tomorrow, we hear, for vice president. Matt, where do you see that situation right now?
Well, I mean, Joe Biden wants to pick Susan Rice. That's the pick he wants to make, and frankly, she's deeply flawed, and we would love that on our side. The question is Joe Biden in charge of the Joe Biden campaign? My prediction is they may try to force him to take somebody that would be more reflective of the radical left, the same radical left that will roll right over Joe Biden in the unlikely event he's elected. And so if we want to preserve this great country, our values, our economy, and our health, we have got to re-elect President Trump. It is very serious.